up.
What's going on?
Well, these are lovely rooms. These are fine rooms, man. Yeah.
What's going on in here?
This is mad.
You speak English?
No.
Or how long have you been in this country?
Yeah.
How long have you been in the UK?
Fucking hell.
No English? Yeah, got to tell.
How long have you been in the UK? We're not here to cause any alarm and ask you how long you've been in the UK. That's what we're here to ask you. 7 days?
Where are you from?
Sudan. How long have you been
Sudan,
here?
they're from Sudan.
But you're saying brother, but your phone, where did you get your phone from? That's what I'm trying to get a point. We're not here to cause trouble. Relax.
Peace.
Peace.
What do they do in their own country? Fucking stone their women. They stone their women in your countries.
And every other country, you have to go around the world, darling. See our police.
No, you're right. Your women getting fucking stoned.
If you go to the Middle East, you don't see that. You don't see paedophiles. You don't see paedophiles in the Middle
Yeah,
East.
you are.
You don't.
What time are the
It's this
rapists getting
country.
here? What time are the rapists getting here?
You probably sit there and allow it.
All of them, what time? Your fucking husband, probably. Your husband's probably fucking
I'd like to
rapist.
know who your husband is.
That's my husband.
This one.
Yeah, I'm alright. I'm alright. I've got an husband. I've got
That's not
kids
your
that ain't been
husband.
raped.
That's not your husband. That's not your husband.
All across England right now, flags are going up. Some people say it's about pride, others say it's about intimidation, and that's the tension that I want to talk about in today's video. Because in this context, flags aren't neutral. They're not just cloth on a pole. They are symbols. They carry history, they carry story, and they carry power. People raising them will tell you, it's harmless, just tradition, just culture, just pride in where they come from, making Britain great again. But when you look closer, when you remember the history stitched into those red and white lines, it's not so simple. Because every flag has two sides, the side of unity and the side of exclusion. And here's the part that cuts deep. When people raise concerns, when immigrants, when black and brown people, or anyone who feels excluded speaks up, the response is always, if you don't like it here, why are you here?
One person told me, oh, the right are racist because they are waving the English flag. So the English flag has now become a racist flag. If it's a racist flag, why are you here? Get out, pack your bags and leave. You don't have to be here if the country is racist. But the reason why you are here is because you know there's no racism in this country. You're just doing this because you want to feel some sense of superiority. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so high and mighty because I'm standing up for something. You're standing up to a ghost. You're standing up to something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, find something else to stand up to. That's funny. Yeah, go into a country where the national flag, according to them, represents racism.
But you're still here.
And that's it. That's the line. That one sentence says everything about how patriotism is weaponized in Britain. It makes belonging conditional. It says this land is ours. It says you can be here only if you are silent. It says your value isn't in your humanity, it's in your compliance. But silence isn't belonging. Obedience isn't belonging. And yet, that's what patriotism has been reduced to. Not love of land, but demand for silence. Which is why, to really understand what's happening today, we need to look at the words themselves and the symbols themselves, because they carry memory and they carry energy. That's where two ideas come from in etymology and metaphysics. Etymology is the history of words, where words come from, how they've been used, and how they've changed over time. Metaphysics is different. It's the energy beneath the word, the meaning and symbolism it carries beyond its dictionary definition. Etymology tells us the history of a word. Metaphysics tells us the vibration of it, the hidden story it encodes. When we apply both, we start to see that patriotism has never been as innocent as it looks. Take England. The very name comes from Engla, land of the Angles, a Germanic tribe who migrated here in the 5th and 6th centuries. Englishness was never pure. It was formed by outsiders, by migration, by movement, and yet nationalism today clings to the myth of a pure English identity. The anxiety about belonging is written into the language itself. Britain, too, wasn't a self-chosen name. It comes from Britanni, the meaning the painted people, what outsiders call the Celts. The Romans invaded and renamed it Britannia. From the beginning, the power to name this land came from conquest, not consent. And then there's Europe itself. Even the continent's name comes from Europa, a Phoenician woman, a woman of colour, abducted by Zeus. The so-called centre of whiteness is literally named after a stolen body. Think about that for a second. And what about the Union Jack? The flag so many people are waving today. On the surface, it looks like unity, stitching together England, Scotland and Ireland. But that unity wasn't equal. Scotland was pressured. Ireland was brutalised. Wales wasn't even represented. And when the Union Jack spread across the world, it didn't symbolise belonging. It symbolises empire. Land taken, people conquered, cultures erased. That's why to some it's pride. But to others, it's pain. Symbols don't mean the same thing to everyone because they carry history, not just colour. So when someone says, if you don't like it here, why are you here? They're not just defending a flag. They're defending a story of ownership, a story of conquest, a story that says you don't belong unless we decide you do. The metaphysics of patriotism, on the surface it says unity, but beneath it, it hides domination, erasure and control. The real question is, should British people be allowed to celebrate their culture? Of course, pride in where you come from isn't wrong. Every culture has the right to celebrate itself. But the problem comes when pride is divorced from history. When it's expressed as if it exists in a vacuum. Because here's the truth. British culture didn't just appear out of thin air like people want us to believe. It wasn't created in isolation. It was built through empire, through extraction, through colonialization, through other people's suffering. And that means you can't separate pride from that history. If you try to, you're telling a half-truth, and half-truths are dangerous. Take tea, for example. The image of Britain abroad is practically a teapot. But tea is not even British. It came from China. It became part of British identity only because the colonial trade routes. And what sweetened that tea? Sugar! And where's sugar from? Caribbean plantations, harvested by enslaved Africans. Afternoon tea isn't just a quiet tradition, it's empire in a teacup. Or think about curry. Today, curry houses are cornerstones of British life. Chicken tikka masala is even called Britain's national dish. But again, the story isn't neutral. The flavours came from India. Folded into British identity through colonialization and migration. That the dish that gets celebrated as British only exists because Britain took it from India. And there's the Industrial Revolution, one of Britain's proudest achievements. It's framed as genius, innovation, progress. But what fueled that revolution? Cotton picked by enslaved Africans in the Americas, shipped across the Atlantic, spun in British mills and sold back to the world. The wealth of that revolution wasn't just invention, it was exploitation. It was slavery turned into machinery. But we're not going to celebrate that part of the history too, right? This is what uncritical patriotism hides. It's quick to celebrate the outcomes, but slow to name the origins. It says, we are proud of tea, but it doesn't mention slavery. It says, curry is British, but it doesn't mention empire. It says the Industrial Revolution was genius, but it doesn't mention the stolen labour that powered it. That's what selective memory does. It erases the people who paid the price for the culture we now call tradition. And that's where we have to talk about pride itself. Because metaphysically, pride is supposed to be grounding. It's meant to connect you to your roots, to your ancestors, to your truth. But when pride is disconnected from history, it mutates. It stops grounding and starts binding. It stops being unity and starts being denial. And denial doesn't unite people, it divides them. This is when pride slips into nationalism. And nationalism always needs an enemy. Because when you refuse to face your shadow, you project it onto someone else. And in Britain, the enemy has become the immigrant, the black person, the brown body, the visible reminder of the history that uncritical patriotism doesn't want to face. Isn't that ironic?
Yeah, it's racist. It's just pure racism.
I know people think it's patriotic and things like that, but I don't particularly get that.
It's a marking of territory, saying we're white, we're here, you know, F you.
It's not a racist thing. We're in England, and if you want to put up an English flag, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
It is our flag, we should be proud of it, like the Scots or the Welsh or the Irish.
We're showing is that this is the country is English. We're proud of our country, but if people want to come here as immigrants, then they should come through the proper channels.
It's more of a attack on immigration rather than true patriotism.
There's a weird connotation with British flags and what it represents.
It's been hijacked, turning into a very negative, point of view around English identity, which I resent, if I'm really honest.
Anything that's not left-wing is far-right, which is absolutely stupid.
Leftists don't want you to be proud of England. Leftists hate the flag. They hate you for hating the flag. You know, they hate you for loving the flag. But it's just not like that, man.
Flag is a banner, right? You unite with people, under the banner. You don't use it to discriminate or, keep people away. That's not what a great country should be.
So the debate isn't about whether people can be proud of their country. The debate is about what kind of pride are we talking about? Pride that acknowledges truth, both slavery and the pain, can be healing. But pride that erases, pride that denies, pride that only wants to see tea without the sugar, the curry without the empire, the wealth without the slavery, that kind of pride isn't patriotism at all. It's propaganda. Let's actually talk about racism, because so often I see British people say that racism isn't really that prominent in the UK and it's much worse in America. I remember when I was 15 and I was getting upset about the BLM riots and the injustice that happened to George Floyd, and people were telling me, well, at least it isn't the US. At least we're in England. At least England is better than the US. It's not as racist. But the truth is, British racism doesn't usually shout. It whispers, it hides behind politeness, behind laws, behind words that sound neutral but aren't. It's the black child that's excluded from school for the same behaviour the white child gets away with. It's natural hair being called unprofessional. It's a job interview. It's word like urban or ghetto or even illegal being used as coded language for too black, too brown, too different. It's the question, where are you really from? Even though you've heard the British accent, but you still proceed to ask, what country are you actually from? You're not really one of us. You might sound like one of us, but you don't look like one of us. As if your passport, your accent, your whole life isn't proof enough.
It's crazy. Like, I don't understand what this school of thought is. Like, how can you just have hate in your heart for no reason? Like, I don't get it. Like, you want everyone to go back. It's not as simple as just go back to your country. We're born here. I'm born here. Like, listen to my accent. I was born around the corner, 10 minutes down the road. So where do you want me to go back to? This is home, Whips Cross. I live on St. James Street. So where do you want me to go back to? I don't get it. And if you look down your lineage, their grandparents probably came from, I don't know, maybe Germany or Scotland or Ireland or whatever. Maybe because they might be white or whatever, but it doesn't mean that you have a divine right to be here. And maybe the reason why some of our parents are here is because there's better opportunities here. Our countries were invaded years ago. Like, it's not a simple solution as just everyone go back. So we need to educate them.
That's the danger of covert racism. It allows people to deny it exists while still weaponizing it every single day. And listen, I get it. I really do. I understand why some white people feel uncomfortable with these conversations that come up, because it can feel like you're being blamed for everything. That part I can see. It can feel heavy. But here's the truth. Excluding immigrants isn't the answer. It just repeats the same old cycle of division, because Britain was never a closed land. From the Romans to the Saxons, from the Normans to the Vikings, migration has always shaped this land. This country was built on migration. After World War II, it was immigrants again. The Windrush generation from the Caribbean, South Asians, Africans, they didn't just arrive, they rebuilt Britain. They staffed the NHS, they drove the buses, they kept the economy alive. Immigration is not the exception to Britain, immigration is Britain. But then comes a phrase we hear so often, I don't mind immigrants, I just don't agree with illegal immigration. On the surface, it sounds reasonable, but we have to ask, who gets called illegal? It's not Australians, Canadians, or Americans who overstay visas. It's not Europeans who now move freely. The face of illegal immigration is almost always black and brown people. So that phrase becomes a coded way of saying I only accept certain kinds of immigrants, the ones that look like me, the ones that don't disrupt the illusion of whiteness as the default. And if we're going to talk about illegal entry, then we have to talk about Britain itself. Colonization was illegal entry. Empire was illegal entry. Taking land that wasn't yours, enslaving people, extracting resources, redrawing maps across the globe, all that was forced entry. The biggest illegal entry project in history wasn't a refugee crossing the channel, it was empire. And that's why these flags matter so much. St. George's Cross during the World Cup, that can be pride, but hundreds of flags suddenly raised on lampposts in the middle of an immigration debate. That's not neutral, that's not patriotism, that's a dog whistle. It's a way of saying this is ours and you don't belong here. It's culture turned into control. Pride turned into intimidation. A symbol turned into a wall. Another thing I want to talk about, because I see so many black people all the time come online and basically pander to white audiences. And I've been one of those girls. I have been there before, thinking if I agree with what white people are saying, then I'll be accepted. If I agree that if you don't like it, you should go back to your country, then they'll finally see me as one of them. But the real truth, and I'm really sorry to break it to you, is when these people who are so patriotic are talking about immigrants leaving their country, they're also talking about you. They don't care that you agree with them. They care that you don't look like them. Because at the end of the day, when it really comes down to it, when people are sifting out where you belong, when they see your skin color, they're going to assume you don't belong here. And that's something that really just baffles me when I see so many black people talk about, well, it doesn't bother me and I love this country and I don't see any racism and there's no racism in the UK and racism doesn't exist. They're not going to pick you. I promise you, they will not pick you. Here's where I want to take this deeper, because at the end of the day, patriotism itself is an illusion. We talk about it like it's natural, like it's instinctive, like it's eternal. But when you strip away the layers, what you find is not love, what you find is control. Let's start with the word itself. Patriotism comes from the Latin patriarch, which means fatherland. And patriarch comes from pater, father. In Greek, patrios meant of the fathers. So patriotism has always been about allegiance to the land of the fathers, obedience to power, obedience to rulers, obedience to structures of authority. It was never about love of the land. Not really. It was about loyalty, allegiance, control. From the very beginning, it told you your worth is measured by your submission to the fatherland. And if we go even deeper, metaphysically, patriotism is a spell. It convinces you that your identity is tied to a border, to a flag, to a nation. It convinces you that your belonging is something external, something that can be granted or revoked. But here's the truth. The soil doesn't know your flag. The wind doesn't care about your borders or your passport. Land existed before nations. Borders are man-made. Nations are imagined. Flags are cloth. Patriotism is the illusion that these inventions are real and they define your worth, your belonging, and your identity. And this is why patriotism so often becomes dangerous, because it pretends to be love, but it's actually fear. Fear of losing control. What do so many people say when they're talking about immigration? They're going to come in our country and change things up. They're going to change things. People aren't scared of immigrants. They're scared to lose control. They're scared to lose Britain and what makes Britain so great, which was built on taking things from other people in the first place. But I digress. When fear is dressed up as love, it always excludes, it always divides, because patriotism without truth can't survive without an enemy. That's why it slips so easily into racism. It's built on exclusion by design. But belonging and patriotism are not the same. True belonging is spiritual, it's ancestral, it's rooted in community, it's in our shared humanity, it's in our connection to land and to each other. Patriotism is territorial. It says, this is mine and you are other. That's why I don't understand when people say, well, I think the flags are meant to bring people together. How? How are they meant to bring people together when people are expressing that they are uncomfortable with these flags being all over their street? And the response to those people is, well, go back to your country then. In what world is that belonging? So when people raise flags and call it pride, we have to ask, pride in what? If your pride makes space for everyone, then it's belonging. If your pride depends on exclusion, if it requires silence, if it tells people, if you don't like it, then why are you here? Then it isn't pride at all. It's propaganda, it's fear, it's a spell designed to control. And here's the truth that patriotism never wants you to remember. You don't belong to the land. The land belongs to itself. The earth doesn't need your flag to recognize you. The ocean doesn't ask you for your papers. The wind doesn't care where you're from. Real belonging is bigger than borders, bigger than nations, bigger than cloth on a pole. Real belonging is in spirit, in our shared origin. It's in the fact that before colonization, before empire, before nations, we were human beings and we were never actually separate. So is it patriotism or racism? The truth is, it depends. If your flag heals, if it unites, if it includes, maybe it's patriotism. But if your flag harms, if it excludes, if it intimidates, then it isn't patriotism at all. It's racism dressed up in red, white, and blue. And maybe that's the real test. Does your flag bring people together or does it push them apart? Because if it pushes people apart, then it's not your pride, it's illusion. And no flag can give you the belonging that was already yours from the beginning. For everything I've said so far, there's one thing we can't forget. People have never just accepted these illusions quietly. From the moment empire tried to define belonging, there's always been voices pushing back. The Windrush generation didn't just rebuild Britain after war. They also fought to be seen as citizens, not outsiders. Families like Stephen Lawrence's turned their grief into a movement that exposed rot inside British policing. Activists today, from Black Lives Matter UK to grassroots community organisers, keep saying what the flag tries to silence. We belong here and we always have. Yet, we also have to name the emotional cost. To grow up in a country and constantly hear, why are you here? It does something to your spirit. It plants doubt. It makes you feel like you're always on trial. Always having to prove you deserve to be in the only home you've ever known. That's the exhaustion of covert racism. It gaslights you into thinking maybe you're imagining it while quietly cutting at your roots. Belonging shouldn't feel conditional. It shouldn't feel like silence in the price of peace. And this isn't just Britain's story. Everywhere, the same pattern repeats. In the US, people kneel during the anthem and get told they're unpatriotic. In Australia, Indigenous people are told to celebrate a national day that marks their dispossession. Across the world, flags are raised as if they mean unity, but too often they're weapons that hide old wounds. This is why we have to go deeper into the spiritual, because metaphysically, flags are false idols. They convince us to worship cloth instead of truth, symbols instead of spirit, but the soil doesn't know a flag. Separation is a wound humanity keeps repeating, but wholeness was always the truth. If people cared so much about patriotism, they wouldn't have to show it externally by putting their flags up. And maybe that's the real key. Flags and patriotism work just like the ego. The ego clings to identity. It says, this is mine and that is yours. We belong, you don't. Ego thrives on division, on pride without truth, or unity that excludes. It's always afraid of dissolving. But the higher self moves differently. The higher self remembers we were never separate. It doesn't deny history. It holds people accountable. But with love, it unites by telling the truth, not by erasing it. So maybe the real test of any flag, of any patriotism, is simple. Is this ego? Does it divide or unite? Does it erase or heal? Patriotism without truth is ego, always excluding, always afraid. But belonging with truth is more powerful. It's unity that heals, accountability that liberates, and love that expands. And that's what I want to leave you with. Next time you see a flag, don't just ask what it represents. Ask who it excludes. Ask who it silences. Ask who it forgets. Pride without truth is denial. But pride with truth, that's not nationalism, that's healing. And healing is the only flag worth raising.